Pat, welcome and happy Thursday. I'm so used to saying happy Friday.
Yeah, no kidding. Happy August 1st. Where did the last 7 months go? Please tell me.
Yeah, and kids are back in school and everything's
I swear.
getting yeah, it's getting strange out there and but good news is it's still hot. So
Yep.
I'm venturing up the Flagstaff tomorrow, hopefully catch a break, but interesting week in the market. It once again it shows that the Fed didn't do anything and our rates went down. All they did was talk. And they said, well, it's probably looking like we'll have a rate cut in September. And they said it's all data dependent, same stuff over
Yep.
and over again. But the market, they've got 100% chance now in the market saying there's going to be a rate cut in September. We know what happens when that rate cut comes. That day, rates will be slightly higher. So, so what are you seeing on your end? We're going to jump right to it here before I get into our local data, but tell us what went on this week.
Well, we got obviously we had the Fed meeting yesterday. There was obviously consensus not to raise or keep our lower rates. Um, I mean, you and I have been kind of pretty much. I mean, not to pat ourselves in the back, though. We've been kind of saying this, but I think I technically don't see you and I just talked about it. Obviously, there's some news about the fact that companies are hurting. Intel, look, you see Intel just today. I mean, they announced that they're going to
Yeah,
affect 15,000 jobs. I mean, and the significance of that is that those are 15,000 jobs that normally they're not paying minimum wage.
yeah,
They're 85, 90, $100,000 a year jobs plus, which is pretty significant. So I think they're trying to get ahead of the curve. But the Fed obviously did um, meet yesterday. They said that they're leaving the door open for a September cut. Obviously it's a 100% probability that they will cut next month. It's remains to be seen. I think maybe if they do, that'll be the only cut that they do. Because I mean, what will between you and me? What do you think a quarter point's not going to really do a heck of a lot?
no, no, and I think I think the people that are saying, well, they're going to cut before the election, it's too late.
Yeah, it's way too late. Yeah,
It's
it's way
not.
too late.
And the other thing to understand when people say that is that the majority of the Fed governors are in the Democratic Party, but Chairman Powell's a registered Republican, so
Yeah.
they don't, I mean, you may say, well, they're going to make a political move so he can keep his job.
It's
I don't know. And, Clayton here is saying, welcome, Clayton. Still a lot of consumer debt that won't improve, I'm assuming you say, with rate cuts. Yeah, you know, I also saw a real dip in construction spending.
yep.
They're pulling back. So the jobs numbers that are going to come out tomorrow, we really need to look at them and say how many of those, like in the past, are actually government jobs because manufacturing's declining. So I was watching a show today with Danielle DiMartino Booth, and she said, "I think the central banks they're behind the eight ball." She said they're late. We should have had a cut now, and she said dark times are coming. And
Wait,
the interesting thing is that I also read, and this is for people that follow the stock market, is that whenever you have a rate cut and a recession, the stock market always goes down. So that could hurt the
yep.
high end of the market. So, but
Well,
we're
I mean, just to go back to the rates, I mean, like you said, they didn't cut the rates, but I mean, it's a good reminder, obviously, that the markets react in real time to things that won't happen in obviously a month or two down the road. So, I
yeah,
mean, that's the thing that people say. Well, that's what people don't understand is, though, like you said just earlier, that the day that they cut rates, the rates typically move the other way.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so, I mean, it was the rate drop. Rates have obviously softened up nicely. We got the 5.5 coupon. It was up 17 basis points today. We've seen it firm up here in the last. This is going back to last month. I mean, we've seen a low here of 98.48. We've gathered about almost 2 points in pricing on the bond. I mean, as far as them, the 5.5 coupon being a low here, like you said, right now, 98.48, we're at 136. Rates have quietly, and that's the thing that people don't understand is, remember, was it 2, 3 weeks ago? I was kind of showing a rate chart saying maybe 7.8, 7.25. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
It was in the, it was the low sevens. This is just one lender, $475,000 purchase, 5% down. This is the scenario that I typically look at, 780 FICO score. This is one of the lenders. This is my loan sifter that I can go through all the lenders and see the pricing and see what lender, is pricing the best or which one's got the best service. So I've got access to all these lenders. This is the whole list of lenders I've got. And, everyone's got a little bit different pricing. But this is Next Bank, the Next Bank they're good bank out of Texas. I mean, like I said, a couple of weeks ago, I was looking at, we were 7.8, 7.25 right now. At 7.8, you can get a credit of $3,700. And I think before it was, correct me if it was like a cost. I have to go back on their video, but it was, it was a cost of a little bit. So you went from 7.8 to quietly down to about 6.5.
Yeah.
You're looking at a 0.5 point decrease in rates, and nothing's really happened. So I'm going to just tell you my theory and my prediction is I think, rates are not going to be this crazy fall, but I think they will staircase climb downward with, and because now we're past, I really feel this. I can see this. I feel it psychologically. I've said this probably 100 million times. Last 2 years, we've been in this rising inflation, talk about everything. The market's been a year ago when the markets reacted to employment numbers. You saw the bond market, down 75 basis points or 80 basis points. I mean, there were some wild days, but now the Fed came out with their news yesterday. Market had a, strong day. The bond market, everything has been subdued. So I think there's been this internal shift that I feel psychologically that now we started this downturn and trend in rates that I think if I was to be a betting man, I would, somebody asked me what I think is going to happen. I think we'll sit here at, maybe mid to high sixes for a while. But then, like you said, in a couple of days or a week or so, we went from 7/8 down to 6.5, basically with some lenders. We could quietly roll into the low 6 range. Cause if you look at the pricing on my pricing chart, we're looking at to get into the low 6s, the bond market would have to capture about 1.5 points in pricing. We've already saw 2 points in the last month. If we saw 2 months, the next month, what happened this last month, we would be sitting in about the 6.125 range in terms of rates. The way the bond market reacted here in the last 30 days. So my take is that if people have done a purchase in the last 6, 7, 8 months, at if they're in the 7.5, 7.375 range, I think you can. You're going to see. My prediction is I think we might see high 5s beginning of next year, sometime, maybe March, April, February, March, April.
Could be if the economic data is coming in as bad as they say it is, and we have our wonderful Jessica here, the broker. Have you got the dual camera there and everything? Your audio's not on.
I'm scared. I'm scared with the mic.
Oh no!
Can you
Hey,
hear
it
me
works.
now?
Yeah, it works great.
Hi
Fabulous.
guys.
Hey there,
Welcome.
how you doing?
Good. That's great news on rates, right? Everybody's been waiting, just sitting on the fence. So next week's gonna be blockbuster.
Yeah, I've got some numbers to show you here about what happened to sales this week too. You're going to find very interesting. But Pat, you see Clayton's question down there on the bottom?
Yeah, I mean DSCR. I mean, I'm just going to give a real general. There's obviously depends on what credit score he's got. 780. You can get some pretty competitive rates on DSCR. That's basically for a debt service coverage ratio loan for investment properties. Just in general, I've seen some lenders. I have to go. I'd have to look it up, but we've got probably 25 different lenders that do, or 25 to 30 plus lenders that do DSCR. But believe it or not, some of them are more competitive than conventional investment pricing. It's like high 6s, low 7s, mid 7, right around there. That's basically a DSCR loan is for investment properties because, and obviously you can get one with no prepay. There's some lenders I got that no prepay, 1 year prepay. If you want to email me something specific, I can run a scenario for you. But they've been pretty competitive though, believe it or not, from an investment standpoint.
Well, I want to
Hopefully
say
that
hello
answers
to
this question.
Thomas. Thomas is watching us from Saudi Arabia at 3 in the morning.
Woo! Hey,
Holy cow. Between your crew, Axios and Dan Frio, I feel like I'm staying abreast of the home market. Thanks. Appreciate that.
that's
Appreciate that.
awesome. We're,
Point one.
we feel like we're in Saudi Arabia right now with our heat.
Oh gosh, no kidding. No kidding. It's just there's no relief. I'm going to try. I'm working with a new program though. People can tell. I had StreamYard. It was giving me some sound problems, so I'm dancing around. If you see me looking like this, it's got a whole new dashboard on it, and it's like learning a new dance. But I think I'm getting there. I got here's our new listings, active listings, not new but active. Notice how it's still flat. If you look at the ticker below, I want to point out something interesting because at the end of the month, at the beginning of the month is when all the expired listings show up because they always have them expire on the 31st, right? Our new listings dropped to 2,090. New contracts went up to 2,625. They've been rolling about 2,400, 2,500. So we ended up with 500 listings on the positive end, new listings, which means it pulls the active listings down. Is the way to think of that. So we had 500 more contracts than we did new listings. So we've been sitting at about 17,800 every Thursday. Now we're down 17,500, and that's why. And if we look at our dashboard here, I love this thing on Rapid Stats. It's up to date for the day, and it shows us that our sold listings are down 9.6%. Our listing count just about where I just quoted you, 17,449. Under contract, 7283, and the rest is just a matter of taking a look and saying, well, between median sales prices and average sales prices, they're neither going up or down. They're pretty flat and have been. Supply versus demand, month supply has gone up. We were 2.9 last week. We're 3.1 now. So we could hit 4 if this continues, but we really don't know. And then if you start driving down by neighborhood, here's Chandler where we have supplies in the green, which means supplies improving for Chandler, right? The market index is sitting at 168, still a seller's market. Demand is a little tepid, but not enough to pull them down too far. I'll jump to Fountain Hills. It's about the same story. Gilbert's relatively the same. Glendale, almost a balanced market of 100. Gold Canyon, just about the same story. Goodyear, the supply is pretty balanced and the market is pretty red. It's a buyer's market out in Goodyear. And Levine is completely balanced. Litchfield Park, supply is balanced, but it's a buyer's market. Demand is tepid. Maricopa, supply is terrible, it says. No, supply is not terrible. It's actually, there's supply index is up. So they are one of the lowest on the market index that we see across the valley at 69. So buyers have a lot more negotiating power out there. But it's hard because you're competing with all the new builds. Mesa, pretty much still a seller's market. Paradise Valley, balanced. Peoria, I'm ripping through these quick for everybody. Peoria is balanced. Phoenix, still slightly ahead as a seller's market. Queen Creek, buyer's market at 72.6. Scottsdale, 127, that's a seller's market. Sun City, you are now in the sellers or buyer's market category. Tougher for sellers. Sun City West, you're not there yet. Sun Lakes is doing well. Went down and looked at a home that we're going to be listing in Sun Lakes, Jessica, probably around September. Need to chat to you about that. And she says, I need to sell it by, I want to close in November. And I said, you know what? August is going to be terrible, but I think your September is going to be good. So, because August is already bad, always bad in Sun Lakes, but look at this, it's not doing too bad. Surprise. Buyer's market, Tempe, almost balanced. Finally, Tolleson is a decent market for sellers, but the numbers there are pretty slow. Now, here's an interesting one here. I read today that builders have really backed off on their spending. And this is single family permits going all the way back to 1996. And you can see where we're at right here, 15,992 for 2024. It doesn't look like they're on a building frenzy in relative terms to our history, does it?
Mm-mm.
And if they're backing off, this number next month and the month after that's going to be lower. So I think it's going to be still an overall shortage of this of supply. Are you feeling that out there, Jessica?
I'm seeing more incentives. Good question, though. I think there's just been too much quietness in the market over the last few weeks. I'd like to revisit that next week, as I personally have 4 new builds under contract right now, and that's a record since the last 3 years. So
Wow.
a lot of new construction under contract right now, but what that means for the next few months, I don't know. On that chart that you just showed, where was the low point? What years were the low dip? I couldn't see.
2010 and 2011.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that was
They weren't taking permits out then, so the homes didn't start showing up really until about 2014, 15. So when you see permits here, it takes about a year and a half for them to actually start digging in the dirt, right?
right,
Yep.
right.
So
And this is national.
no, this is just us.
Okay, Arizona.
Yeah. So we're not seeing, and and along with that sentiment, because you hear people saying, well, they're overbuilding. I'm also hearing that Airbnbs are suffering and those are going to be hitting the market. Well, not quite. Short-term rentals reach a turning point after a 2023 slump. Signs of a turnaround emerged despite a crackdown in short-term rentals in some cities. And this is from the site that tracks them called AirDNA. And they're basically saying about there were 1.56 million listings nationally in 2023, up 14% from the year prior. This year is estimated to be about 1.65 million listings, more modest 5.8% annual, increase in supply. Well, if they were dumping them, it'd show up here. You wouldn't have an increase in supply if Airbnb people were losing their shirt. Now, today is the first official day where buyer broker commissions are not listed and shown on the MLS, and the misinformation is in rapid form. I know you had a couple classes this week on that, right, Jessica?
Yep. It's funny too, because the first thing I did at 8:00 this morning was pull up the MLS to make sure.
I saw the funniest thing on Facebook in a real estate group, and some guy wrote, "What happened to the buyer broker section in the MLS?" He's joking, right? And like
Oh,
typical social media, everybody's pouncing on this guy. Where you been? Living under a rock? And I'm
aw.
just laughing at it. I just said, "Good one." Hey,
That was
Jackie's
hilarious.
on. How are you, Jackie?
Hey,
Um,
Jackie.
so I thought
Jackie.
that was funny. But here's another thing I heard, and there's confusion out there. And tell me what I've read that you go to an open house, you have to have an agreement with the buyer when you go to show them home. And you can have a touring agreement or you can have a buyer broker agreement that stays with you as the agent and the buyer. A touring agreement is, okay, if I show you homes and you want to write a contract, here's my fee. And now if the seller is offering to pay my fee, great. You're not on the hook for it. If you don't want this house and you don't want to pay the fee, you know the drill. Well, open houses, they're saying that some people think when you go into open house that you have to sign an agreement with the guy that's at the open house to be able to show you the home.
Not the case.
No, but you watch. There's going to be some shady agents out there go, "I'm sorry, you got to sign in."
Right?
It's the new law because, they're already pulling trickery to get you to sign. We need you to sign in, put your email address because the homeowner wants it for their safety. So they knew it was in the home. The homeowner never sees it. The guys go home, put you in the database, start dripping on you for a year and a half. they're going to use this. They're going to use this to say, you got to sign in. But so far from what I've read on the agreements that I see, I don't see any earth-shattering changes.
Not at all. I think it's going to be organic, for us, it will be organically going to move in the direction that it needs to go. Buyers that see a value in what we do, and sellers for that matter, are going to hire people that just like they would have in the past. It's just a few different forms and a few different, actually it's more communication, which needs to be forced amongst community. So it's forced communication in writing, which is great.
Yeah, that's the whole deal behind these forms. It's not to lock anybody into anything. It's just to say, here's what we do, here's how it works, here's how much it costs. The commission can still be paid by the seller like they have been in the past. That commission varies. For the seller, it's negotiable. So we just want to let you know this is how it works. And so I think it's going to be still the summer of confusion, because there are quite honestly a lot of agents that haven't even taken a look at the form yet. And I think there's going to be a lot of missteps. But I will say the fines for not following this are huge.
Are they really?
Oh, they're we usually get dinged. I haven't been fined yet in my real estate career, but we usually get dinged $50, $250. You want to get hard, it's $500.
500.
Now it's
Isn't it
1,000. It's
Was it
1,000, depending on the infraction. So that's pretty rough. So I'm going to be a very good boy. When we look at foreclosures pending, we were talking about all the bad news. I can again show you that there's just nothing going on there. We're sitting here at, it says 2024 995 compared to previous years. If I really want to go back to 2010, you had 44,000. So, and then there's also a lot of numbers out there about the number of evictions that we have now that are growing and pretty harsh. And a lot of that's just the whole system was backed up. You couldn't even get into court to evict anybody. But there is an uptick in evictions in our market, especially in Phoenix. Rents climbed up. I'm not seeing rents coming down yet. I'm seeing rents kind of stay relatively high, and but I also have not seen the upcoming collapse and financial collapse of commercial yet. Remember that was supposed to hit us real hard this year?
Yep. Yeah, it was supposed to hit us real hard. But
Supposed to put banks in trouble, and I guess they're just quietly rewriting the notes.
yeah, that's what they're doing, is they're quietly rewriting the note, trying to do something behind the scenes. And once again, as I said some time ago, commercial, it might have an effect on the banking industry in general, but I feel like I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. It's typically institutionally driven. So, I mean, you got an institution that has got a $250 million note, they'll just write that off. I mean, it's not,
Yeah.
it's not like a personal bankruptcy where somebody forecloses on their home. I think that's much more detrimental than, to an average person. But you get these institutions that throw this money around, they'll write it off, or they'll, rewrite the note, they extend it a while, or, kind of give them some time. So it definitely hasn't had any type of bearing that I've seen. It's quiet. It's very quiet.
It's an episode of Seinfeld where Kramer goes, "They write it off." What do you mean? What's a write-off? They write it off, Jerry.
Interesting note. Talk about the 10-year just to jump back to me a little bit. It's because it's not all about me, obviously, but
Sometimes it is. But
yeah, I mean the 10. I just saw this today. The 10-year Treasury broke below 4 for the first time since beginning of February. So we've been riding this. The 10-year Treasury. 4.65. 4.49. Just tipping the 5% range here and there. But we're at 3.95 now in the 10-year Treasury. So the trend, as they always say, is your friend. And I think that, I'm going to speak to it ad nauseum. I think our trend is definitely, if I was betting man, we're going to see lower rates in the next 4, 5, 6 months.
Are they
So-
going to be low enough to increase transactions when we're
Oh,
hitting
yeah.
this affordability wall?
I
And
think
let's just spitball here. We're at 20. I'll say an average of 2,600 every 7 days now. We get into October. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you saw, at 7.25, on that $475,000 purchase, your principal and interest was $3,000. You get down into the low sixes, it's about $300 a month difference in payment. So, we saw that back last March, April, May, where we saw rates in the low sixes, and we saw pretty good demand. I think low sixes, you're going to see a lot more demand come out of the woodwork.
Or we're going to see people encouraged that they may go even lower and they're going to wait even longer.
Well, that's the problem. Yeah, that's you get that stall where people are like, oh, I'm just going to wait to see if they go a little bit lower.
That's how I see the rest of the year shaking out.
Yeah.
We could have great improvements in rates in September,
If
October.
they start moving down, that's what's going to have people say, well, I think I'm going to wait till they get a little lower, and they'll be paralyzed by that news for a bit too.
I think so. Do you think so, Jessica?
Now that you guys are saying it, absolutely. And November, December are always slow with holidays. So we only have August. We've already talked about September, October to get a push forward just because of a short dip in rates. It probably means it's going to, like you say, be very slow. And then by January, February, kind of the momentum speed back up with the interest rates if they don't change from now until then. Or get better, like you say, if it improves in the first quarter of next year, that's going to instigate the final push back into tax season, first of the year, snowbirds.
I think if we get the big movement, we saw the big movement, say from 7.8, 7.25. Like I said, a couple weeks ago, we were at 7.8, 7.25. We got now obviously rates in 6 and 5/8. If we see it move down to let's say low sixes, high fives, I think people are going to realize once you make that big move down, where you can save $300 or $400, then people are like, okay, now it's getting in a range where I can afford it. Because the difference between, say, 5.99 and say, 5.75 is basically $70. Then you got to the point where like, okay, that's not going to make that big of a difference. But then if it gets into that, the absolute number where like, okay, I could save $300 or $400 on my payment. This makes sense now financially. I think it's going to bring people out of the woodwork.
Well, the jobs numbers tomorrow are going to give us an indication of I think cementing the rate cut for September. The projection for the jobs number, what did you say? It's 275,000. Is that what you thought it was?
Yeah, I think it was tomorrow. It's projected 175,000 forecast.
175,000. Okay, and I think we said earlier, you got to look inside and see how many of those are government jobs because the private sector jobs are shrinking, manufacturing shrinking. We're getting a lot of layoffs. So, it's highly possible that the central bank could get pretty aggressive in Q4, regardless of housing. If rates come down quite a bit, which I don't see it, getting down in the mid fives by Christmas, but they've got bigger fish to fry than housing. You kind of say, sorry guys, houses are going to be expensive for a while, but I don't want the economy to collapse. So I don't know. It's, like Jackie said, if we get into 6.5, the market might get busy. I think it could, but getting back to what we just said earlier, if you look now and you get into, I'm out of my wheelhouse here, Pat, I'm coming into your world, but if closer we get to September when they're going to make the cut, the rates will probably go up a little bit. And then they're going to make the announcement of the cut, and they'll stay right there.
They might not go up, but they're not going to react the way people think they are. They're going to be. It's just basically typically when the news is released, it's just a flat market.
I just want during the conferences with the central bank for Chairman Powell to take a cough drop, quick clearing his throat. Oh yeah.
I would have to clear my throat too if I had to walk such a fine line that he has to walk. I mean, it's like one word that talk about analyzing one word. It's if he says the one wrong word or one wrong sentence, it's like, okay, we're screwed.
Yeah, and then the questions that he get, it's kind of like, did you not hear what he just said?
Yeah.
You know, it's data dependent, and they ask him question, well, what's going to make you move rates in September? Well, it's data dependent.
He's so I'm gonna have to I'm gonna do this data analogy. Maybe I have to listen to his conference call again and take some pointers on how to walk the fine line of not getting too committal when I'm
Yeah.
talking to somebody on Match.com.
Yeah. Well, now Match.com stock, and they're laying people off, Pat. So you better get going. So now
Yeah.
I was look here, Jessica. You tell me wrong, but what women look for, because we're like 23 minutes into it, and this is when Pat usually starts talking about dating, is women look for security.
I would agree.
Every time I start flirting with a lady, they ask for security. So that's how I know that. So there's nobody laughing out there. That was pretty
Yeah, I
neat.
know.
Yeah, that's pretty proud. Well, guys, thanks for joining us. And like I say, I'm heading up to Flagstaff for the weekend and escape the heat a little bit in my RV. And I hope you guys have a great one. Jessica, we'll talk about your new setup and everything. I think it looks great. And need to chit chat with you about Sun Lakes when you get a chance too. So everybody have a fabulous weekend. Thanks for watching. Take care.
Take care.
Have a good weekend.